The cheapest way to heat your home in winter isn't the method that uses the least energy. It's the method that costs you the least money per unit of heat delivered to your living space. And those two things are not the same at all. I'm going to break down the actual cost per BTU of different heating methods, explain why the most efficient systems often aren't the most affordable, and show you what really determines your winter heating bill beyond just the thermostat setting. Most people assume that electric heat is expensive and natural gas is cheap, or that newer high-efficiency systems always save money compared to older equipment. Neither of those assumptions holds up when you look at the real numbers. The cost to heat your home depends on three factors: the price of your fuel source, the efficiency of your heating system, and how much heat your home loses to the outside. Let's start with fuel costs, because this is where most people get it wrong. Natural gas is typically the cheapest fuel per BTU in most parts of the country. As of right now, you're paying roughly $1 per therm of natural gas, which gives you about 100,000 BTUs of heat energy. Electricity costs about 12 cents per kilowatt hour on average, which gives you about 3,400 BTUs of heat energy. That means electricity costs about 3 to 4 times as much as natural gas for the same amount of heat. Propane costs about $2.50 per gallon, giving you around 91,000 BTUs. Heating oil is similar, roughly $3 per gallon for about 138,000 BTUs. So if you're just looking at fuel costs, natural gas wins. Propane and heating oil are roughly twice as expensive. Electricity is 3 to 4 times as expensive. But here's where it gets more complicated. Efficiency matters. A natural gas furnace might be 80 to 95% efficient, meaning some heat goes up the chimney and is wasted. An electric resistance heater is 100% efficient because all the electricity gets converted to heat right in your home. A heat pump, which runs on electricity, can actually be 200 to 300% efficient because it's moving heat from outside to inside rather than generating it. For every unit of electricity it uses, it delivers 2 to 3 units of heat. So even though electricity costs more per BTU, a heat pump can deliver heat more cheaply than a gas furnace in moderate climates. This is the key insight most people miss. You can't just compare fuel prices. You have to compare the total cost of delivered heat. Let's run some real numbers. Say you need to add 1 million BTUs of heat to your home over the course of a cold week. Here's what that costs with different systems. With natural gas at $1 per therm and a 90% efficient furnace, you need about 11 therms, costing you $11. With propane at $2.50 per gallon and an 85% efficient furnace, you need about 13 gallons, costing you $32. With electric resistance heat at 12 cents per kilowatt hour, you need about 293 kilowatt hours, costing you $35. With a heat pump running at 250% efficiency and the same electricity rate, you need only 117 kilowatt hours, costing you $14. Suddenly, the picture looks very different. Natural gas is still cheapest at $11, but the heat pump at $14 beats propane at $32 and electric resistance at $35 by a huge margin. Now add another variable. What if you're in a state with expensive electricity, like California or Hawaii, where rates can be 25 cents per kilowatt hour or more? Now that same heat pump scenario costs you $29 instead of $14. Still cheaper than propane or resistance heat, but getting closer. And what if it's extremely cold outside? Heat pumps lose efficiency when outdoor temperatures drop below freezing. In very cold climates, that 250% efficiency might drop to 150% or lower, making the heat pump cost more to run. This is why there's no universal answer to what's cheapest. It depends entirely on your local fuel costs, your climate, and what heating system you have or can afford to install. But here's what almost nobody talks about. The cheapest heating method might not be the one you're currently using at all. If you're heating with expensive electric resistance heaters or baseboard heat, you're probably paying 2 to 3 times more than you need to. Switching to almost anything else would save you money. If you're in a mild climate and heating with propane or oil, a heat pump could cut your costs in half. If you have access to natural gas but you're not using it, that's probably your cheapest option by far. And here's another angle. Supplemental heating with wood, pellets, or even passive solar can dramatically reduce your costs if you're willing to put in a bit more effort. A cord of firewood costs around $200 to $300 in most areas and contains about 20 million BTUs of heat energy. Even at 50% efficiency in a wood stove, that's heat for 1 cent per 10,000 BTUs. That's cheaper than anything else. Pellet stoves are more convenient and can cost about 3 to 4 cents per 10,000 BTUs, depending on pellet prices in your area. Still very competitive with natural gas and much cheaper than electricity. But most people don't consider these options because they require more involvement. You have to load wood or pellets. You have to clean the stove. You have to store fuel. That's the trade-off. The cheapest heating methods often require more work or more upfront investment. Here's the other factor nobody wants to talk about: heat loss. You can have the most efficient, cheapest heating system in the world, but if your home is poorly insulated and leaking air like a sieve, you're still going to pay a fortune. Sealing air leaks and adding insulation isn't glamorous. It doesn't involve buying new equipment, but it's often the single most cost-effective thing you can do. For a few $100s in weather stripping, caulk, and insulation, you can reduce your heating needs by 20 to 30%. That saves you money, no matter what fuel you're using. So what's the actual cheapest way to heat your home? If you have access to natural gas and a reasonably efficient furnace, that's probably your answer. If you don't have gas but you live in a moderate climate, a heat pump is likely your best bet. If you're in a cold climate without gas, propane or oil with good insulation is your reality. And if you're willing to put in some work, supplemental wood or pellet heat can cut your costs dramatically, regardless of your primary system. But here's what really matters. Understanding these numbers lets you make informed decisions instead of just accepting whatever heating bill shows up. Most people have never actually calculated what they're paying per BTU. They just know their winter bills are high and they don't like it. Once you understand the real costs, you can start looking at alternatives. Maybe it's switching fuels. Maybe it's adding insulation. Maybe it's installing a different type of system. Maybe it's generating some of your own heat through alternative methods. I've put together a breakdown in the description of heating costs by fuel type and system efficiency, along with information about supplemental heating options that can work alongside your main system. If you want to understand energy costs beyond just turning down the thermostat, subscribe for analysis that shows you what's actually driving your bills and what your real options are. Heating your home doesn't have to cost a fortune, but it does require understanding what you're actually paying for.